He had never seen an old man this stubborn. All he did was buy a bottle of milk at the supermarket, and when the cashier casually mentioned that the best cure for a terminal illness wasn't medicine but belief, he made up his mind on the spot. He was going to walk 1,000 kilometers across the entire UK, from the southwest to the far northeast, just to see a former colleague he hadn't met in over 20 years. The problem, he barely had any cash on him. His phone was left at home, and he was wearing a pair of stiff leather shoes, completely unsuitable for such a journey. Maybe he was afraid that if he thought too much about the consequences, he'd talk himself out of it, so he didn't even tell his wife he was leaving. Instead, on the envelope of the letter he originally planned to send to his colleague, he simply wrote 2 words, "Wait for me." And just like that, at 65 years old, he stepped out the door without looking back. That morning, he had received a letter from his old colleague. His first instinct was to reply with a few polite words and let the conversation fade into nothing, just like before. But this time, for some reason, he made a different choice. And in that moment, the rusted, motionless gears of his fate began to turn again. Of course, he was an old man. He had never walked this far in his entire life. Just getting out of town completely drained his energy. But he knew one thing for certain. There was no turning back. Feeling at peace with his decision, he found a public phone booth and called home. When his wife heard that he had run off on this crazy journey, for another woman, no less, she slammed the phone down in anger. But as soon as she did, a wave of worry hit her, thinking about his frail body. She quickly picked the phone back up, wanting to tell him something, anything. But by then, he was already walking away from the booth, a quiet loneliness in his eyes, knowing he would never be understood.